What is going on, everyone? My name is Under the Radar and welcome back to the Draft League Viabilities. In the last episode, we covered my favorite mega in general, but I had some pretty mixed opinions on it in my video, so make sure you guys go back to that video and check it out before you watch this one. In that video, actually, I talked about how Mega Autono needs some pretty good wall breakers to stand up and be really good at what it does. And I'm going to be talking about a wall breaker that is very underrated and everybody forgets about until they have it sitting in front of them and they lose to it. That wall breaker is, of course, Crawdaunt. Now, Crawdaunt is a very unique wall breaker that I'm personally in love with for a couple different reasons. First off, knockoff stab is absolutely insane. Then adding into the fact that it has adaptability to boost one of the best moves in the game along because it's stab, like, that's just ow. Whenever you think of a bulky water type, you think that it can wall things like a Azumarill because it's a water type wall breaker. Even things that can want to like take out a Azumarill pretty well or take it on pretty well, they can't take on Crawdaunt because knockoff is so strong. While the Azumarill can get access to Belly Drum, it doesn't get access to Swords Dance. So that +2 in one turn, while it could cripple Azumarill, it does not cripple Crawdaunt if the opponent switches out. It also gets access to set up its own speed because it has a very pitiful speed of base 55. So because it can set up its own speed with Dragon Dance, it can outspeed so many Scarfers along with boosting its already insane attack stat with adaptability, with great stabs, and really good coverage. So by really good coverage, it really doesn't have the most prominent move pool. It's basically limited to superpower, water stab, dark stab, and then a coverage move here or there of aerial ace or rock slide. However, whenever you're running something that has adaptability, 9 times out of 10 you don't run anything that isn't stab plus a setup move, and that's what makes this thing so dangerous, because if you prep for just those two typings and you bring like a Ferrothorn to take on the water types and then Rocky Helmet Roughskin to take on the knockoff, you're going to be caught with a superpower and you're going to die, especially if it is a Swords Dance Crawdaunt. This thing also doesn't really have a terrible special attack stat of 90 with adaptability, boosted Scald, and Dark Pulse and things of that nature. It's really not the worst thing in the entire world, and it could catch some teams off surprise. And some things that might want to switch into the dark type attacks might not want to switch into a Sludge Wave or a Sludge Bomb coming from like a Life Orb modest Crawdaunt. Now, one of the best things about this mon as a wall breaker is that it's a wall breaker along with a very good late game cleaner. That if your team is weakened enough and they cannot live a Life Orbed Aqua Jet from an adaptability Crawdaunt, you will lose the game late game, even if it's last mon Crawdaunt, just because adaptability, Aqua Jet, Life Orb, and its base stat attack is crazy hard hitting, and it's very hard to switch into unless you still have your bulky water type around. This thing also gets a couple pretty cool niche moves for teams that are extremely just bulky in general. Like if you're facing, say, a Skarm Bliss Core or a Skarm Chansey Core, this thing does get access to Taunt and Switcheroo. So if you're running a Choice Banded one, you can switcheroo the Choice Band onto the Chansey, and then you could have like, or the Blissey bet would be better, and then you could have leftovers. Then if you have Swords Dance, like you could just do so much with this thing to catch bulky teams off guard that when you pair this thing up with Mega Autono, the two really do work out together pretty well. And the really cool thing about Crawdaunt is that hardly anybody takes it in draft format because everybody forgets about it. Everybody forgets that it's a hard-hitting water type, that it is a very good wall breaker, until somebody realizes it, drafts it, and then they face it, and they're just like, how do I switch into this? This mon is also pretty easy to pair up with something else because it doesn't really need a whole lot to be a really good wall breaker. Like bulky water types, they don't take knockoffs or crunches or night slashes hardly the way they want to from this thing. So realistically, an electric type would be cool to help weaken them, but it's not necessary. This thing just hits so hard. One thing I would recommend though is having a very good steel type, because if your opponent has something like a really good fairy like Clefable, and they are able to take 2 Crab Hammers or 2 Waterfalls, having a really good steel type like Scizor to be able to defog away hazards, to help your Crawdaunt later on with sweeping, or to clean up late game, or having it to be able to bullet punch things or anything like that, just could come in really handy. Excadrill is another very good mon that I would pair up with this thing, because it's speedy, can get rid of hazards, can set up hazards, and can help deal with fairies that both Mega Audino and Crawdaunt kind of sort of struggle with in taking down. Now I'm just going to be straight up with you guys. I've considered Crawdaunt for the next season of the PPL for a very long time. It's just the fact that it's so hard for me to find a Mega that I want to use with it. So that's something I'd be very careful with. The Mega that you want to take this thing with, I would suggest that it be a bulkier Mega. Just because if you have a very offensive Mega, that could kind of sort of hinder it a little bit, because then Crawdaunt might not be your main threat that you want it to be. They might prep for both of them, and they could carry, like, the main threat that could do a lot of your sweeping or your wall breaking could be your Mega, and when you draft Crawdaunt, you want it to be your main wall breaker, so that's something that you have to take into consideration. I would really pair this thing up with Mega Audino. I think they work out very well. Mega Audino can take so many fairy hits that want to come its way. It can also take so many fighting type hits. Even though it is neutral, it still takes them pretty freaking well. Also, Hazard Stack is very good with Crawdaunt, because after like a layer of spikes and a layer of rocks, there's nothing that wants to switch into a knockoff or an Aqua Jet or a Crab Hammer from this thing. So I think that Hazard Stack is very important. So if you wanted to go with another steel type to get this, I would also suggest Ferrothorn, just because it's a 4x weakness to fire. Mega Audino can take fire hits pretty well because of how fat it is. You can still set up your spikes and your stealth rocks with just Ferrothorn, and you're still able to help deal with some of the bulky water problems that might be coming Crawdaunt's way. However, if I had to give Crawdaunt a grade, I would probably realistically give this thing a B, and the only reason is because of its speed tier. It is extremely slow, and even after a Dragon Dance, you're not going to be outspeeding like the Lottie twins or things like that, so it's still very hard to take them down. And there are a lot of faster mons or other Scarfers that could just outspeed it and one-shot it, because it isn't the bulkiest mon on the special side, so it's a little bit easier to deal with than some other wall breakers could be. However, Crawdaunt is something that people will sleep on, especially in draft. And if all your other wall breakers get taken, Crawdaunt can be a very good substitution for something like Azumarill if it gets sniped from you. Well guys, there you have it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you go down to the comment section, you leave a comment letting me know what you guys think of Crawdaunt, along with leaving a like on the video. It really helps support my channel, and I really do appreciate it. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!